happening? AC Mike here. Listen, here we are, episode 5. You believe that? 5 in the can. This is a great one. This gentleman I've spoken to many times on our radio show throughout special events, and not to date ourselves with this podcast, yesterday. That being said, Jim Rutala Associates, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be with you, Mike.
Listen,
Thank you.
so many times we get together and just talk, and a couple nice lunches, but to be able to sit with you a little bit in long form, this is what I've always wanted to do with you, Jim. Jim, first of all, tell folks about who Jim Rutala is a little bit, and kind of what you do, and we'll get into all the other.
Okay. Well, I born and raised in South Jersey, so this is my home. Spent every summer at the shore, except for one. We'll get to that in a second. Went to got a degree from Seton Hall University, undergraduate, and went to the Ohio State University for my master's in city and regional planning. Got a scholarship there, so I went out to Columbus, and that was the one summer that I didn't spend at the shore. It was an 18-month program, so I had to stay in Columbus during the summer. And I promised myself that I would never do that again. Columbus doesn't seem that far away, but people, it's 10 hours away, and most of the people there have never seen the ocean.
Is that right?
They have no idea what it's about. And, I would ask them, where do you go? And they'd say Lake Michigan or a little pond outside of town. It was not the same. So I decided that was going to be my last year my only year away from the shore. And the day after I graduated at the SHU, the Ohio State University football stadium. Walked the stadium. The next day, I got in my car. I drove to Sea Isle City, rented a house, and lived there for 13 years. And since then, I've moved to Linwood and got married. And been there ever since. So I guess you could say I have sand in my shoes.
You definitely do. I mean, again, it's funny when you say that in the Midwest. I got some friends from Iowa. And I remember him coming here, became a pastor at one of the churches in EHT. And great wrestler and all that. You cannot get this guy and his family off the beach now. He's like never experienced. I mean, I don't want to say we take it for granted, but it's just a different. But Ohio State, though, I mean, I'm a huge football fan. Love college football. How was that? I mean, they're iconic, right?
It was just amazing. It was funny. The day that I drove out, drove by myself to Columbus, and when I got there, the marquee said, "Goodbye, Woody. We hate to see you go." That was the day that Woody Hayes walked onto the field and punched a Clemson player and got fired. Now, Woody was iconic, as was Ohio State football. So, I was a high school football player, and to go out there was just amazing. But Woody Hayes was my idol. And he got fired that day. Yeah. So, we went, had season tickets, football tickets, basketball tickets. The athletics there is just incredible. Everything's first class. And, just Jesse Owens' legacy there, and just amazing athletes that have gone there. So
love it. And I do recall, Jim, as I sit here watching that game, I believe it was a bowl game.
It was.
And I was a huge Ohio State fan living here in New Jersey. And Woody Hayes and Archie Griffin. So we could go on that'll be our sports podcast we talk about. But that's really cool.
Yeah, it was funny. It go to with Archie Griffith. At that time, you could just walk into the stadium, just walk around, and all his trophies were there. The Heisman trophies and everything.
Two-time.
Today, you can't even get into those buildings. No. But just amazing legacy.
Yeah. Two-time Heisman
Twice,
trophy.
only one.
It's incredible.
Yep.
So, Jim, doing a little bit of homework on you, and I know you're pretty good, and I consider you a friend, though. But one of the things I found interesting as I was just scrolling through and checking Jim Rutala out, and Mr. Worthington, tell us about that. Tell us how you got your start in that whole story there.
It was interesting. When I was in Columbus, I subscribed to the Press of Atlantic City, because at that time, I was in school for my master's in planning. So I was really interested in city and regional planning, and Atlantic City was booming. It just had, started to build casinos, and, a lot was going on. So I would get the press and read about what was going on. And when I got back here, I figured I'm going to get a job in Atlantic City, and applied to the county. And Chuck Worthington called me. He was the first county executive. Now, Chuck's an interesting guy. He was a school teacher in Brigantine. His family owned a marina where Harris is built now. And, so they sold their marina, and Chuck was really cutting edge. He was the first county executive. He had hired some really bright folks from Stockton to be his cabinet. And they were doing all kinds of crazy things then. I mean, because it was tremendous change. But anyhow, Chuck would, after he interviewed me, he would take me out to lunch and introduce me to all the power brokers in the area. So I got to meet Steve Persky and Bill Gormley and the union leaders and everyone that was involved in the area at the time. He didn't have to do that. He didn't know me from anyone. But he was just that kind of guy, he took an interest, and it was great. One of my mentors at that time.
Awesome.
A lot was going on then. They created the Atlantic City Transportation Authority,
right.
The Convention Authority. We were involved in designing and building the convention center and the rail station with Senator Gormley. The rail line was proposed, and initially it wasn't going to include stops in Absecon and Egg Harbor City and Hamilton. It was going to be the Gamblers Express. Well, now it's used for commuting, and you go to Absecon, it's packed. Right. So we convinced the state to add those stops along the way, which really helped those communities to develop. Airport was a big issue. We did a master plan for the airport. And, at that time, Atlantic City owned 83 acres of the airport, of the 5,000 acres. Didn't really make sense, but that's where the terminal was. But we had come up with a new plan, working with the FAA and others, to create a new airport on the west side, which would have been attached to the rail line in Pomona. Would have been ideal.
That would have been.
Never went through. FAA was very supportive, but the powers that be never made it happen, unfortunately. But just a tremendous amount was going on then, and a lot of interest in the area, a lot of new ideas. Anything was worth trying at that point, and it was a great time to be in the area.
And Atlantic City being what it is, I mean, what better place to try? Like you said, you throw it up on the wall, not literally, but that sort of thing. And when you mentioned Mr. Worthington and what he did for you, and it's something that we've talked about many, many times, and I hear the mayor, I hear Senator Palestina, I hear Mayor Small, and so many others, and so many people that I've come in contact. Relationships, Jim. That's what it's all about. I mean, talk to us, and tell our listening and viewing audience the importance of it, because I believe that's probably 50% of how you've gotten to go. Go right ahead. I'll let you.
No, you're right. I mean, relationships are extremely important, and it's building trust,
right.
Respect. It's all the basics, and people that have are in powerful positions, they look for people like that, and if they find people that they can respect, and they'll work with them. And in so many things that we do, whether it's raising money for projects or just creating projects, people have to they have to know that you're going to deliver, right. And even the funding agencies, they want to know that you're going to make them look good. Right. They don't want to be part of a failed project. Right. It's their career as well. So you got to respect all that. And but relationships are so very important. And you work on that all the time. That never stops.
I mean, whether it's business or whether it's in our homes or whatnot, it's just so huge.
Yep.
And it's that networking type thing that I've always wished that, again, when I say regret, nothing bad, just back in the day as a youngster in my 20s or 30s, wish I would have networked more. I mean, knew a lot of people and got along, but I didn't get that whole thing. Go to an event, grab a card, go talk to somebody, get an idea. There's nothing wrong with that. So, we were just recently at a press conference, ribbon cutting, shovels in the ground, whatever you want to call it. It's all good. Hovanian, some of the national builders coming into town. I want to jump in. We're going to bounce around to all different types of things, the infrastructure, the money, the amount. What is the amount of money Atlantic City, and I know you're also Cape May and you're Pleasantville and that sort. But what has happened? Because here's two things, Jim. A lot of municipalities don't have that type of money, and it's out there. People don't know about it or don't investigate it. Talk to us about that and some of the infrastructure and what we have coming into the city of Atlantic City.
We have $250 million being spent right now in Atlantic City this year. That's incredible. Resiliency money. I mean, the entire really making the city much more resilient is so important. I mean, you just mentioned the Havanian project. It wouldn't have happened if the seawall wasn't built. That area was a very poor area of the city.
Northeast Inland.
And it flooded all the time. Now with that seawall, it's protected. We did the same thing in the Back Bays, all new bulkheads on all the public properties and pump stations and other things that improve the quality of life in the neighborhoods. Transportation, we've talked for years about synchronized signals on Atlantic and Pacific Avenue and Arctic Avenue. It's almost done now.
I don't mean to laugh, but it was
decades, and now it's funded and it's happening, and that's huge. The investments that we have in the neighborhoods. We have community development corporations now that are bringing millions of dollars into the neighborhoods to make sure that the people that have lived here for decades are taken care of. And so, because their way of life won't continue unless there's some support, and it won't improve, especially. So we have money for first-time home buyers and for housing rehab and things like that. The boardwalk's getting redecked and rebuilt. The boardwalk's 100 years old.
Yeah,
it's part of our infrastructure, but there's not really money for something like that. In that case, we talked to the state and the governor's office, and they put together a $100 million fund for boardwalks, not just for Atlantic City, but the whole Jersey coast. Made us compete for it. Atlantic City got the lion's share, which
because
is good.
It starts with an A, right?
That's right. And but it took that again. It took those relationships to create that. Obviously there was a need, but there's always a lot of needs. But the boardwalks of New Jersey are iconic, and they're part of our identity. And we had to make people understand that. And but that $100 million is being well spent, and it's creating other projects on the boardwalk. And now you're seeing new development happen because of those improvements. So awful lot happening. Even things like Route 40. Route 40 is being elevated right now, and areas
into the city or
into the city,
go ahead.
all the way in West Atlantic City, because that needs to be addressed.
Right.
And $50 million project to elevate Route 40 and to deal with the flooding issues along there. So a lot of different things, a lot of different, and it's all happening this year. So it's a great sign.
And Rutala Associates is responsible for a lot of that, Jim. And I personally, as a resident, want to thank you. And you touched on something a few minutes ago when you talked about, listen, when we talk Atlantic City, lots of folks just think casinos and all that type of stuff, the hotels, the shows, the conventions and whatnot. But you touched on something very important: the residents, the people, the folks that live here, and I've gone through a lot and seen a lot of money go different areas. That was supposed to be staying in the city back in the day, and I appreciate when you say that because I've seen the difference. I've been here. I want to say probably going on 20 years. So going on 20 years to 2027, and I have seen a significant difference in the people. I mean, I try to get off the boardwalk as much as possible to go into the city and talk to the folks. And again, a lot of what you have done and some of the others, and it was genius with the mayor to bring your team in to be able to secure this type of thing. But one of the most important things, again, that's the residents and thanking you personally. But one of the most important things I think is, and I think you said it, is that there has to be some sort of action. There has to be that money, and you have to be seeing what's going on Atlantic Avenue right now, that sort of thing. I mean, that I believe is the most important, because when this funding comes, there has to be a plan in place. And I've seen it in the past where there really wasn't a plan. I don't want to say, and again, not to point and poke to anybody. Right. To your point,
it takes a big team.
Yep.
And it takes good leadership. Yep. And everybody's got to work together. I mean, they all have different issues and different agendas, but at the end of the day, they have to work together. And that's what we try to do. Whenever we are working on a project, Atlantic Avenue is a great example. Got a little controversial along the way, but that's fine. Everybody bought in. The casinos wrote letters of interest. The senator, the assemblyman, the mayor, business groups, everybody got on board. And that's what we need. You mentioned the neighborhoods. I just want to go back to that for a second. We, and none of this is, we're in kind of in a renaissance right now in Atlantic City, or at least it's starting. But it all goes back probably 15, 20 years. Really, Superstorm Sandy started the changes in Atlantic City because it brought a real interest in making the city more resilient, and that brought money because, again, there was consensus that things had to happen. Same thing with the neighborhoods. We found out about the funding for poor neighborhoods in New Jersey, and Atlantic City wasn't on the list. So I went to Trenton, and this is 2015. I went to Trenton and met with the guy who still heads the program today, and met with him and said, "Why isn't Atlantic City on the list?" He said, "Well, you have casinos, you have other revenue. You don't need our help." Kind of, that was the message. So I went back and met with Jim Whalen, who was the senator at the time, and I said, "We're not on the list. This is crazy. This has to change." He introduced legislation. The legislation passed the assembly, and then the governor's office called him and said, "You don't need legislation. You're in." So this was 2015. At the time, there was no money you had to do a neighborhood plan in order to qualify for the money. There was no money for neighborhood plans. But we found this nonprofit, Wells Fargo Regional Foundation out of Philadelphia. And they said, we'll help you. So again, a nonprofit that had nothing to do with Atlantic City, but they knew the area. They funded the Ducktown plan and the Midtown plan. And that's how we got started. And then you had people like Mike Cagno, runs the Noise Museum at the time, and the Arts Garage.
Right.
He was the leader. He got Stockton, who was an employer, to back him, and he said, "I'll do Ducktown." You had Samantha Kiley from Midtown. Well, I'll do Midtown. Natalie Devendish.
Yeah.
For the Inlet.
The Inlet.
Atlantic Cape Community College.
With her, she's amazing.
And started. We got our plans done, and they started to get funding. Elizabeth Rennick got involved with AC DevCo, and then we expanded them to include almost the entire city. And now, there's real funding, and the residents make the decisions.
Right.
They're all on the board. You're on a couple of the boards. Yep. And there's funding for first-time home buyers. There's funding for housing rehab. There's funding for facade improvements. They're all working together on wayfinding, which we've been trying to do for decades in town.
Right.
They're making it happen. And these are, for the most part, these people are all volunteers. They have real jobs, but this is what they're doing on the side. So they're real community leaders. And I think the residents understand that, that it's real. It's not, it's not because they're making a fortune or anything.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. Once you get the community, the buy-in, because I watched for many, many years, walking, whether it was Captain O'Donnell Park or down the street or Midtown, watch residents, and myself included, step over that broken pole or that sort of, not even mentioning if something was in repair, in needs of repair. Listen, that has stopped. I mean, if something as simple as pulling your trash cans back to the yard, but that pride and the fact that what I always stressed, Jim, one of the things, going to meetings, I need a life because I go to way too many meetings, and I always did, even as a young guy. My father would be like, "What the hell are you doing? Where are you going?" But I always found that whether it was a councilman, woman, or public works or public safety, that they're not everywhere.
Right.
They're not everywhere. And just because you show up and have an issue doesn't mean you have to be nasty about it or not. But I've never seen once at a council meeting or CRDA meeting or even back in Hamilton back in the day where a councilman or woman or a mayor said, "You know what? We only got 2 or 3 minutes for you to say your piece, but here's my card. Meet with me afterwards, because I believe that was always the missing part here. Was just me talking the last 20 years, that the folks just sit on the boardwalk bench or in the park and just complain about it or say on them, where they want you to tell them, whether it was Elizabeth or Chelsea EDC or the city. I mean, it's an important part. I know it's not a lot of the infrastructure of what we're talking about, but I believe that's how things get done within the neighborhood.
It is, and the local elected officials played it the right way.
Yeah.
All they did was help.
Right.
They, Kaleem Shabazz has been to almost every meeting in Ducktown and Midtown because it's part of his ward, and he feels that's his responsibility. And he's an advocate. The mayor's an advocate. The mayor said, the only thing I want, he asked for one thing. He asked that they expand to include the entire city. Not a bad thing to ask for,
right.
And they all did it. But all he does is he's an advocate. Doesn't try to control them. It's not a political thing. There's no politicians on any of the boards.
Right.
It's community, and that's what makes it so successful. So it really has worked out well.
And now to bounce off, you talked about the boardwalk, the first of its kind, the longest of its kind, folks. Again, the boardwalk, $50-60 million, and that doesn't even cover the whole boardwalk. Right. We have a very large boardwalk, but that being done, Atlantic Avenue being done again after years. And what happens here too, I find, is when people hear about grant money, why aren't they spending that money on Atlantic Avenue? What not? And you talked about relationships too, and I'm going to put this in there too. The mayor had a great relationship with Congressman Van Drew, and the money was froze. President Trump froze the money for whatever reason, and that was sort of, hey, Jeff, can you talk to the president? And it got released that way. I mean, it was simple as that. Am I overstepping when I say that?
You're right.
So that sort of thing, again, when it's the grant money is sought and, gotten, it goes for a specific, let folks know that, because again, I was one that would say that 20, 25 years ago too. Well, why don't they do this specific?
Yeah, there are priorities. We meet with the mayor. We listen to everybody. There's priorities today that we haven't achieved yet. I mean, big priority is the convention industry.
Right.
We need $300 million. We need to renovate the convention center. It's 30 years old. We need to renovate Boardwalk Hall. It's iconic and underused. And we need to build or create another headquarters hotel because it's required for a lot of projects. That's kind of the next generation. Right. But yeah, you have to have priorities, and everybody has to buy in. And once everyone buys in, things happen. Right. But you're right; everything is based on a priority.
No, absolutely. And again, priority, and action. So, I mean, so much going on. Again, we could probably spend an hour, 2 hours talking, Jim, about the stuff that's going on. We mentioned Kay Hovani. We mentioned Pat Fasano yesterday. Listen, I love that guy as a friend. I met him about 9 years ago or so, and he was talking about Tennessee Avenue, New York Avenue, and doing all the stuff. I was like, dude, same thing I said to Evan and Mark Colazzo and some of the others. I was like, dude, you sure? You understand what you're doing? But, these folks have come into town. If anybody doesn't know, Pat Fasano, Asbury Park, 20, 25 years ago, right? Now it's a totally different location and spot. These guys have come in, and gals have come into this city. Talk to us about that a little bit. I mean, the Plaza site as well. Yeah. I don't want to.
They're major risk takers. They were the first ones in.
Great phrase.
And they all got involved in the Orange Loop. Now, the Orange Loop is the dead zone. It was always considered the dead zone. It was the last place that you wanted to be. And they picked that, and they took big risk. And you got to give them a lot of credit.
Yes, sir.
Pat would come in with a map, colored map of the Southeast Inlet with 20 different property owners. Glenn Straub was a property owner. Individuals were property owners. The city was a property owner. CRDA was a property owner. And his goal was to assemble it. And it's something that he does well. And he would go knock on doors.
I would see him walking.
Talk to individuals, and he made it happen. You got to give him a lot of credit. Right. No one else made that happen.
Take a year, 2 years.
It sat vacant for decades.
Yeah.
And people knew why. It was fragmented ownership. People bought a property thinking that this was going to be my gold mine.
Well, exactly. So if I was coming in to do a big project, or you were coming in to do a big project, and I owned a little lot here, you'd come to me, hey, Mike, we want to do this here. Oh, yeah, $15 million.
Right.
Is that what what was happening?
Well, and the zoning didn't help either.
Right.
Okay. The entire zoning of the frontage of the beach, the entire tourism district, is zoned for high-density development. That's not what this city wants to be. It's not what it used to be. What's being developed now in the Southeast Inlet is what the city was. Single-family, duplex, triplex. That was it. It was a neighborhood. Right. And that's what they're rebuilding. So, and that's what the infrastructure provides for. So there's there's truth to what's happening here. It's really going back to the past. But Pat made it happen, and that's just amazing.
Love that guy. Again, he'll be.
And then he brought in big developers like Avani
right ahead.
And Trax and others, and he has connections. A lot of the contractors are working here in town are folks from Asbury Park. Now they have homes here in town because they know there's a history here. There's a future here. It's very good.
It definitely is. Again, and where I live, I mean, there's a bunch of Asbury Park, and they love it here. I mean, and who could it? There's so much to do here. One of the things I always love saying, live, work, play, AC in so many different ways. And I mean that when I say that. I mean, I don't mean to sound corny. I freaking love the place. I love it. Again, the good, the bad, the ugly, the good, and the revitalization and what's happening. What is going on present day, 50 projects, 52 projects as we sit here today. What do you say? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Jim. But
no. There are 49 individual projects that have building permits. They're fully permitted. And this is everything from, multi-million-dollar casino hotel renovations to individual homes. So 49 projects, 31 different developers and builders working in the city. And it's not, and what's neat is it's a diversity of projects. You have major restaurant owners and business people in town that are reinvesting in the city.
Good point.
That's enlightening.
28, 25, a couple of them, not the point.
Exactly. And they know the city, and they feel that now's the time. I mean, these are people that really know the city, and they're investing in the city. That's huge. You have the housing, Hovanian is a higher-end housing product, but the majority of the housing that's being built is for the workforce. It's rental and for sale at reasonable cost. Pafazano has the Renaissance on the Boardwalk, which is gorgeous. I've walked through there, overlooking the ocean
with balconies,
and units that are renting for $1,300 to $2,200 a month, with utilities included. That's a deal. That's workforce housing, and there's many other projects like that. And so 90% or 80% of the casino workforce does not live in Atlantic City. 60% of the city workforce does not live in Atlantic City. So we have a built-in market. There are people, if you provide new product, city hasn't had new product for 20 years. If you provide new product where they feel comfortable, where they can rent or buy, they'll come here.
That's true.
Because as you said, I mean, there's lots to do. And you just have to get used to the city.
And that's the thing, getting people walkability, right? Again, part of the Orange Loop of what their theory was, having folks bouncing from place to place and throughout. Now Chelsea, Down Beach, Uptown, we're going to have it soon. One of the things, too, and you touched on it, whether it's second homes, rentals, apartments, townhomes, one of the things we've been stagnated at 35 to 38,000, and in order to bump that population up, there wasn't a bunch of brick and mortar being built. I mean, maybe the 80s, 90s, 2000s in the inlet was when that was going on. Do you see, Jim, again, not to put you on the spot, is it more home ownership? Is it that rental? But also, again, the folks that work here, we want them to stay here, but go right ahead.
It's a mix. A lot of people rent first. I mean, you find this in any of the beach communities. They rent first if they come into the area. They find the area. They find that they like the area, and then they buy. Home ownership. Atlantic City home ownership is a huge goal in Atlantic City. Doesn't mean that everyone has to own a home, but especially the residents that have been here for years, if we can get them into home ownership with support,
Right.
financial support, that's just a better quality of life because they care about their property. The neighborhood evolves, and that's great. Atlantic City in its heyday had 65,000 people. We don't have to get to that level again, but we know that there's ability to grow this city,
Right.
and that makes all the businesses do well year round. It just makes the city more viable. And you mentioned people making the city walkable. You see that now. I'm in town a lot, and you see more people walking on Pacific Avenue instead of the boardwalk. They want to see what's going on. When people come here, even for conventions, they want to know what's new. And right now, there's a lot new. There's a lot of new things going on. There's a lot of things to see in the city, and they're not all in the 9 casinos. It's throughout the city,
yeah. Right.
And that's important. So we have a lot for people to look at.
We definitely do have a lot, between the Anchor Rock Club and just different stuff down here, Down Beach. It is, and one of the things you mentioned, conventions. I mean, I love watching the basketball and the volleyball conventions when they come into town, watching the families, the kids with their backpacks, and yo, Mike, where can we go get a steak? And we don't want to go to a casino or whatnot. So it's just one of those great things that is going on in this city. Mm-hmm. Jim, we're going to finish with this, and you're definitely going to be back here again. We appreciate what you did. $250 million of infrastructure going in the city, part of Rutala Associates. 10 years. Where do you see AC?
I think we have, we're starting to see the second round of developers. These are more institutional developers, more sophisticated. You mentioned the Plaza site and the Wyndham and what MGM's considering on their property. Projects like that, larger scale projects, they're real. MGM especially, Plaza site is Times Square in Atlantic City.
Yes, sir.
They're picking the right sites. I think you're gonna see that. I think the momentum's there. And these are the right people. These are people that know Atlantic City, they know the market, they know what can work here. And, so I think the city is going to become much more vibrant. I think that, we talk about gentrification and things like that. That's concerning. But I think as long as we keep working with the neighborhoods
right.
and upgrading the neighborhoods, that can be paused. Because most of the development is in underused properties and underused buildings or buildings that are vacant. That's where we're seeing a lot of our development. So I think now's our time.
Right.
There's a renaissance going on, and I think it can continue. It takes stable leadership. We haven't had stable leadership in Atlantic City since Senator Whalen was mayor in 2002. So that's important. Working with the state is really important. Keeping everybody on the same page. We didn't do that for a long time. Now we're doing it.
Those battles.
And it's providing some real leverage. All those things are important. So, making the wrong decisions can turn this off. We'll have to stay working on the same page.
Right. Relationships, again, they mean so much. Jim, I want to thank you for joining us today. Listen, we'll definitely do this again. And I can't help but mention this. I love that plaza. And what's going on. Maybe a high rise. I'm not going to say you said it, but that's the idea. Mr. Icon's, owned it for a while. It came down. What did you say?
It's Times Square.
Times Square in Atlantic City.
Is.
When you come in, I saw the billboard too being replaced too. They did that big billboard when you come out. Yep. So I want to thank you again.
Definitely
for joining us, folks. Make sure you check out Rutala Associates. Guys doing so as a resident of Atlantic City and also someone who brings people here, family, friends. You're making a difference. And again, all those relationships, I give credit to the senator, mayor, residents getting involved, the CDCs. Good times. Get to Atlantic City. I'm telling you, you need to do that. Live, work, play AC right here. And in order to do that, you got to visit Atlantic City. Jim, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.